Hello guys, I decided to give the Volvo a little bit of a break this week, and something I haven't done yet is do a teardown of this New Holland. It is a T8.390. Right, I don't really know much about New Holland tractors, but why this is going to be an interesting model to build. If you look at the bonnet here, you can see we have our plastic bonnet like we did in other tractors, but it's all nearly exposed, and the bonnet itself is actually very small, so when we close it we can see all of this area, so we can't really hide our servo quite as easily as we did in, say, the Fendt or the Massey. That is going to make things tricky. So what we really want to see in this teardown is, can we have any hope of fitting an N20 motor or two in the back of this model, or are we going to have to use Control 32 motors? And where are we going to put our servos? There's probably plenty of space in this area for the lifting arm servos, and probably we're going to have to put the steering servo there as well, because like I say, this part isn't, or is probably too exposed to put it there. But there's quite a distance between this point on the steering rack and where we would be mounting the servo back there. So maybe we'll have to mount our steering servo in front, or well, kind of above the wheels. But that also leaves things a little bit tight. So let's take it apart and see what there is. So when we take the bottom off the tractor here, we can see its usual kind of Siku configuration. We've our two plastic cavities here with the aluminium or die-cast aluminium body running along the middle. This one is quite good. The plastic here is a little bit higher. Yeah, so that means that, you know, we could cut a little groove in the plastic here to get some wires in and out of there. We could put some components in there maybe. Some of the other ones, the die-cast body comes up to this very bottom edge of the plastic here, so you can't get through it easily. You have to cut into the die cast as well, which isn't a big job. It's just a little bit trickier than the plastic. It looks to me like this might be narrower than other tractors we've worked on, and I'm pretty sure this is longer. So let me just grab, say, the Fendt, and we'll see how this bottom piece lines up on the Fendt. Okay, so here's the Fendt 936 lined up alongside it. You can see the back wheels are lined up and our front wheels are a little bit further along. So if I line up the bottom piece, it looks like it's the same width, so that's a good sign that we'll get the N20 motor in. And it's actually looks to be the same width at the front here where the axles meet, but you can see that the front axle of the New Holland is a little bit further on than the axle on the Fendt. So there's the rear axle lined up, and you can see this is the point where the front axle of the New Holland would pass through, but it's back about a centimetre on the Fendt. So that probably means that the New Holland will be well, it won't turn as sharply as the Fendt, because there's a much larger distance between the two axles. Well, that's assuming that the wheels don't turn any sharper, I suppose. No, it actually looks like the wheels on the Fendt turn sharper than the New Holland, so I would expect when we get the models finished, the New Holland won't turn as well as the Fendt. It doesn't look so good for putting N20 motors in there. I think it's going to be a little bit too tight. We'll probably have to go with a Control 32 motor, the same as the Fendt here. So I'll grab a Control 32 motor and some N20 motors, and we'll see what they look like in it. So if we look at the rear end of the New Holland here, this is the standard Control 32 motor, so that would probably just fit in there fairly easily. It actually very nearly fits in there perfectly without any modification, so that might be a good reason to go for that motor. If we just needed to file a little bit off this edge here and a little bit off here, putting that motor in there would be very easy. So going with the Control 32 motor would probably save us a huge amount of time in the long run if that's the case. Because even if we look at the bottom of this model here, there's a huge cavity still here, so we do have lots of space. See how the motor lines up to that. Looks like we'd lose the screw there, or that mounting point. So we'd have a bit of modifications to do on this end. We'd probably have to cut part of this away. We did that on the Massey as well. And looks like to be, we just need to file away one of these little, I guess they're strengthening pieces. I'm not sure what they are. Oh, they feel like they're to line up the base of the model there. Anyway, we'd have to modify those if we went with the Control 32 motor. I have a pair of N20 motors here. So if we went with those, I'm not taking them out of the packet because there's just quite a bit of grease in this packet. So if we went with those two motors, it's quite clear we'd have to completely remove this and cut sections out of either side of the body there to fit the two motors in there. If we put the wheels back on, we'll probably get away with that without too much difficulty. The wires would just about clear the wheels, I'd guess. If we needed to, we could put the wheels out a little bit wider and that would give us a little bit extra clearance on our wires. And the obvious benefit of going with the dual motors is that we can do a software differential like we did on some of the other vehicles. It is very convenient to use these motors, these Siku motors, but once you have the locked axle, it makes the model very difficult to steer. And since I don't actually have a Siku tractor that has the dual motor differential idea, maybe I will go with the New Holland here. It might also let us improve the steering if we could put the differential effect in the back here, because I'm pretty sure this quite long long wheelbase would mean that we have quite bad steering. So that's the drive motors. Now what about our steering? How are we going to get our motor or our servo in to control that? So here are the two types of servos we usually use. There's a 9 gram servo and a 3.7 gram servo. So we'll see how they fit. Probably the 9 gram servo. These are all cheap servos from eBay, obviously. Probably only cost a couple of dollars each. You know, we've quite a bit of space there. It looks like that servo would easily fit up into this space if we just modified the mounting point here. You'd probably put it this way actually. I'd say maybe drill a hole through the bottom there, probably just cut the wire there, feed it through. Well, not get rid of the mounting point, but you might just trim that one slightly so that it runs into this rail here, maybe this little piece that's sticking out in the plastic here. Once you had that mounted in there, you could have your servo arm moving back and forward here. Then you could hook that up maybe to your lifting arms at the back. Turning the steering from that location, I don't think it would be possible because you'd pretty much just be pushing forward on the axle, so I don't think it would steer it. But we can see we have our normal Siku gear coming up there, so maybe we could somehow remove that. It's going to the steering wheel obviously, so it would be going along there somewhere. If we intercepted that and modified the body here, all falling apart, but if we modified the body, it's about the right width here for the servo. So if we could get it hidden in behind this section, we could always just cover this over with a black piece of plastic, it wouldn't really matter, or even just paint the servo black, it probably wouldn't be all that noticeable. But then maybe we could get that gear head off there, get it onto the servo and hide that up there. That would leave all of this space here for the lifting arms at the back, and also all this space here for the motor. Then because our servo would be sort of here somewhere, we'd have the space at the front here to put our electronics in, and if I get one of my little control boards, I reckon it'll fit in there nicely. So here's the little control board. It's pretty small, and if we change the orientation of the radio, I'd say if we give it 90 degrees from, instead of this way down, we angled it down this way, so it would be like an L shape. We could put the control board on the top with the radio facing down. This is a little plastic piece, so we should still radiate out from the front here, and with this plastic piece here we'll probably get a little bit of radiation up through the top as well. But the main point anyway is that there should be plenty of space to mount that on the front. if we had our servo motor mounted at the back there. But alternatively, we could always try mount our servo under here with the servo arm pointing back the ways. So our servo arm would be up the front coming back here, and then we could connect it to our steering rack here without much difficulty, I don't think. That might be an easier way, but the gear connection to the gear would definitely be the more elegant way. And if we had the servo up this side, then we'd have plenty of room for our radio or our control board back here, with the radio up under the seat or somewhere in the cab there. So it looks like the New Holland will probably be a pretty challenging build. Hopefully if we get the N20 motors into it, it'll be really good steering. We could have plenty of power from those motors as well. I don't have a Control 32 model with N20 motors, so the Ford has N20 motors, but it's pretty light. If we had a heavier Siku model with the motors, I think we'd get much more pulling power out of them, and it would be much more impressive all around. You know, you have the big wide tyres that the Ford doesn't have. Although I changed the tyres, they're still quite skinny tyres relative to these more modern tractors. So if you think that's going to be a good build and you like the video, make sure and hit the like button. And if you have any comments or suggestions, I'd like to hear them below the video, or head on over to the forum and let me know. I think this is going to be a pretty good build when we get all our lights going. Looks like we'll have 6 little LEDs in the front there, 6 around the cab. If we can get our 2 beacons and everything going there, it's going to be a pretty cool tractor in the end. So I think that's pretty much everything I have for today. So thanks very much for watching.